rise up, stand the price, the loss of legs. My occupation, in essence, not complacent. Block the banquet, stop the computation. I'ma make the coda, fools just wanna make the quota. They can't rock around here, they need baking soda. This a hydra, no way they taking over. Lay them below the basement with snakes and cobras.
Like Mattteo is just nodding. He's just doing everything that he can to like, I think I know what he's saying, you know, but
exactly the first time that we met, I'm just nodding and smiling, and I just said hello. That's
Jamie, just replace Mattteo with like a glazed donut, and we'll be good.
This is the INKPULP Podcast.
Oh, Jesus. What you guys don't see is everything that I saw behind the scenes before this stupid show started. You know, so here we are again, episode 322. Thank you for joining us one more time on this.
what number of episodes?
Dumpster Inferno. That is the INKPULP Podcast. I am your co-host. I want to introduce you to the Tweedledee of our trio, Mr. Mattteo Scalera. Hello, Mattteo. How are you doing, man?
Hello. And by the way, you got to explain me that, because I like the sound of it, but I don't know what it means.
That's all right. That's okay. It's actually very fitting and on brand that you don't know what it is as Tweedledee. So it's Tweedledum.
It's from Alice in Wonderland.
Our prestigious, very gracious, very loving host, Mr. Shawn Crystal, thank you for always having us, pal.
Hello.
Thank you for tolerating all of our bullshittery. Now we're on a bit of a delay here as far as our guest is concerned. They'll jump in when they can. I hope that it's always a technical issue on somebody's end, if not theirs. Definitely ours. I want to remind people that last week, Mattteo hated Tommy Lee Edwards so much he didn't jump into the show until right around closing. As a matter, I think he was timing it. He was like, they're about 45, 50 minutes in.
Yeah, I'm gonna show up just for the sake of the podcast. But I'm gonna, I just want to see him as little as possible.
I was so busy. Yeah.
I mean, Mattteo, just be honest. You were hoping he was gone by then. And that you could.
Yeah, I was hoping maybe it's just in and out, and by the time I would be on, it would be off. But Jesus, I caught him, and I mean it was quick, so it didn't do much damage to my person. But.
You did more damage by coming in. Like we were doing all right, and then you step into the place, and then you were like, hey, what can I piss on while I'm in here for the next 5 minutes? What part of the carpet can I take a shit on? So,
okay, here's what we're gonna do. So once the episode is out on YouTube, we'll with analytics or whatever the fuck we use to analyze how people watch it, how many.
Listen to this. I want to see this fucking guy, Shawn.
You know what? I've been meaning to bring this up. The episode that came out without Mattteo, it was me and Eric, performed far better than the Mattteo episodes.
Oh, fuck off!
So I don't think that the double up Scalera thing is going to hold anymore.
Now, hold on. I think it helped in a big way, but it's peaked. You know what I mean? Like it is.
Yeah. Like Mr. Freeze. Like he came onto the podcast like King of Spies, and then Mr. Freeze did all the way
You know
down.
what was happening? Like people were still on, like waiting for me to come out. Like, okay, he's coming. Is he coming? Is he coming? So everybody was glued to their screen to wait for me. That's what happens.
Is that it?
Everyone was glued to the screen.
Everyone was glued to the screen. All right, listen.
Can we talk about the Twitter trouble Mattteo stirred up yesterday?
What did you do, man?
With his distaste of
What did
Naples?
you do? I did everything that I could.
Francesca wasn't happy.
I did everything that I could to take the dynamite out of that particular blast zone. Give it context.
And by the way, I knew this was going to happen sooner or later by watching the episode where I wasn't on to defend myself and to explain things properly. So you were just freely talking about, Mattteo hates people from Naples. I don't know why. I think he told us, you called them gypsies for a second. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck are we creating now? But there's a specific, thing that happened during my first. And
hey, there he is.
Where is he?
Hey, what's up, Rich?
There is our guest, Mattteo. Okay, Rich.
Hey.
Before we do the big intro, we were just talking about the fact that Mattteo hates gypsies from Napoli. So, he's effectively trying to burn the podcast down before we get a good start on it. So.
Yeah, you can't say gypsy. That's a no.
No, he does.
Oh, yeah,
he does, and he says it multiple times.
Mattteo.
All right, listen. Things got significantly. Things got significantly classier because
why
Rich
do you
Friend
get a
is
free
here.
pass?
Well, because I'm not, from the States, so I'm not into, just new cultures and shit. No.
I visited
I was just about to say that things got significantly classier since Rich Friend stepped in, but Shawn is just like, I'm going to drive this bus into the wall. It's my fucking show.
So you guys are already recording?
We are. Okay. We are. Only because everybody else is on a weirdo schedule. Sure. Pal, thank you for making time for us. Thank you for joining us. And thank you. I'm sorry you're going through all of the technical issues that you're in. We're going to try to make this as frictionless for you as possible.
Yeah, it looks like the computer app wants to run on Windows 11. I don't have Windows 11, so that was the issue.
You're good, dude. You're good. Always. Thank you for being here. Just to give you a heads up, there's a little prompt on your screen right now.
Okay.
That is saying like uploading or whatever it is. So all that is the app is natively recording onto a local hard drive for you.
Okay.
And as we're talking, it's simultaneously uploading it to the cloud. Okay. So that the way our screen is set up now, right? It's literally being recorded on 4 different files so that our editor can come in, smash it all together, make it, give it a really, really nice production polish, right? We needed it, to be honest with you, Rich. Because look at these dum-dums. Look at these Nimrods.
I'm on the surface of Mars because the sun is like blazing through the red. The worst time of the day.
You look good, pal.
I just turned pink, but if I open this, it's like nuclear.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh no.
You're at an atom bomb testing site.
It's like during the summer, it's pretty brutal for about 3 months. Like how bright it is, like this direction for about 3 hours. So what are we talking about today?
Where do you live?
San Diego.
So it actually, you know what? That's hilarious to me, right? Because right before you walked in, about 5 minutes after, right before Mattteo, about 5 minutes before you walked in, right after Mattteo came in and started talking about his overall hate for the southern part of Italy,
right?
And everybody that comes from there, right? He also opened up with this little gem. Who the fuck is Rich Friend and what's he doing on our show? And I was like, whoa.
No, that's not true.
No.
It's okay.
No. Yeah, actually, Richard, he probably doesn't remember, but he's one of the first people that I've ever met in the industry.
I remember.
The first time that I came. Oh, okay. We met in San Diego 100%. My first year.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. It was probably 10 or 12 years ago. About you had your hair in the top knot back then.
Yeah, back in the happy days when I still have hair. Yeah.
Back when his genetics didn't fail him.
I think I met you 2 years in a row, in fact, because I remember meeting you the first year and I was like, wow, that guy was really nice. Like I really liked you. And then I remember seeing you. My visual memory, in particular for faces, is almost photographic. So, but yeah, no, I totally remember meeting you the first time.
So the next year when he came back, you're like, oh, he's actually an asshole.
Oh yeah.
Rich,
I completely misjudged him.
He's
an asshole.
The reason why he came off as a really nice guy that first time is because he knew like 2% English. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So he didn't say a lot. The moment he learned English, and most specifically through like comedy shows, which is like just chock full of assholic comments, that's when you were like, oh, I get it. This guy's not a nice guy. He was just ignorant. Now He's significantly more interesting.
It just wasn't able
to
express properly his hasslery.
Seriously, that was total joke, Rich. We just wanted to be able to ask you, all the right questions. We were trying to optimize for how YouTube works, so we want to get the good questions up front because that's typically when people tune in and listen. And if there's anything that you want to talk,
already waited too long.
we burned 9 minutes worth of this stuff. They're not listening anymore, dude. We're gonna have to pay for an audience now.
4 to 6 minutes.
And wait, to be fair, Jamie's going to come in here and tighten this all up. So everything that you're saying is probably going to be front loaded at the conversation. So Mattteo was asking me, he knew about your history in regards to being an inker. He didn't quite have an understanding of like when you made the transition into full-time illustrator. And me personally, I want to talk about, how much headway you've gotten with your current creator-owned project. So in any of those order you want to talk about, we're totally down to listen.
Oh, well, I mean, I've been at DC. Well, I mean, DC bought Wildstorm, but I have been at DC for, I think about 12 or 14 years. And then when Wildstorm technically closed, meaning that they shut the La Jolla office, Wildstorm had already been closed for like a decade, but we were all working for DC, and it kind of still felt like we were Wildstorm. So I worked at home for DC, like as a freelancer for maybe 3 years. And I was just, there was no really sort of progression that I was going to have with my inking career. I'd already inked, probably some of the high level people that I would have ever wanted to ink. And
hey, wait, Rich, let's not skip over that, right? Because that's big. That's a huge one. Totally. Can you name a handful of the ones where you just the luminaries that you've had an opportunity to work with?
Well, I worked with Will Portacio for like 2 years. I've inked Jim Lee. I worked over Campbell. Travis Charay is like a huge one. I inked Chris Bocklow for 3 years, and then I did David Finch for like 3 years. But dude, I hate to generalize, but honestly, probably the last decade that I was inking at DC, it was a lot of them trying to get me to ink brand new pencilers, and it was frustrating because it was almost like I kept having to hit reset on my career, and I kind of joke and say that they sort of saw me as like the elevator, like I was gonna like elevate like all the stuff I was working on. I don't like doing finishes. I feel like it's the penciler's responsibility to like put down what they want. So whenever they would ask me like, hey, do you want to do finishes on this person? I never really was into that, to be honest.
Can we take a step back, Rich? Yeah. You were talking about like, I think if there's a silver lining that I want to be able to help highlight is that your craft as an inker had gotten to such a high and exalted level that they thought that getting it's like wrestling. You know what I mean? Like they bring in the Undertaker to put over these guys who are coming up, generations later. You know what I mean? Because without that sort of like buzz, without that like hype, these guys are just they're gonna middle card the entire time,
But it's career suicide for me.
I know, for sure. But anyway, so is that one of the motivating reasons why you said, hey, this isn't my cup of tea, let me try? Where did that take you?
Well, the thing is so like how I got into inking was, for me, it was just a job. I wasn't like a huge comic book fan before that. I'd always been pretty good at art, and I happened to meet a guy that was a professional inker. And at the time, I was singing in a band that was touring the country, and we were doing pretty good. And but I needed a day job. I mean, I needed something to make income. And at the time, I was working for a friend of mine that had like a painting business. So we would refinish furniture, or we would lay wood floors or paint houses and stuff like that. And, I mean, I don't even remember what I was getting paid, but it was decent money, but not great money. But the inker that I met through my band, he was making like over $100,000 a year, like in my eyes, tracing drawings. And I was like, dude, cow. I could totally do that. So anyway, so I got into inking initially as just a job, like a cool job. And then, you just get to a point where it becomes what you do for a living. And then it's very difficult to switch careers. even from penciling, inking. I mean, how many people can you name in comics that were 100% inkers and then actually switched to penciling full time?
Right.
Like they don't waffle back and forth. I mean, people will go, people will go, well, Sienkiewicz inks, but Sienkiewicz established himself initially as a penciler inker.
Right.
For sure.
I've seen just of recent Jonathan Glapion has made the change, but that took him a career to do so.
Right. Yeah. It took me 4 years. It took me 4 years to basically get inking out of my head. So like I completely left inking about 4 years ago. Just this last year, do I feel like I finally have completely like gotten all the bad habits that you would have as an inker that literally do not help penciling at all.
What's the bad habits, Rich? Can you name
you're completely focused on surface detail. You're not paying attention to construction. You're not paying attention to proportion, spatial distances. It's like everything that drawing is, inking kind of isn't. But there is crossover, but you know, people go, well, I'm sure inking like really helped your penciling, and I'm like, no, not really. I don't think so.
Is it because when you're inking, there is this inherent assumption where it's like all the thinking has been done for you in regards to like, all that spatial stuff.
When I broke in, I just had a bunch of techniques memorized. I knew that on lower planes, you would place a heavier line. I knew how to feather really good. I'd always been able to draw really neat, like cleanly and pretty accurately. So that benefited me immediately because it's like once I memorized sort of like where line weights would go in a generic sense, it's like having a colorist that only had like two tricks where it's like they've just learned how to copy sort of modeling, but they don't really understand lighting. They don't know how light falls. They don't know how light falls over a figure. They don't understand what bounce light really is. There's so many subtleties to it. So I mean the first. Oh,
hey, by the way, we're nodding our heads like we know what you're talking about, especially Mattteo. Mattteo is like going like this. Like Mattteo is just nodding. He's just doing everything that he can. So like, I think I know what he's saying, but
exactly the first time that we met. I'm just nodding and smiling, and I just said hello. That's totally
He's a nice guy again.
Well,
Jamie, just replace Mattteo with like a glazed donut, and we'll be good.
The irony of it all is that really I'm a very instinctual artist, but I can verbally explain stuff. But I genuinely I kind of rely more on that end of things.
As in the more gut, doing things a little bit more.
I try to.
I think what's happened, and then you talked about this very briefly when you and I were talking about it offline, where you said, I started my YouTube channel, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
No, like 7 or 8 years ago.
7 years ago, holy mackerel. But then I think that's what allowed you to sort of like, hey, all this stuff that's coming naturally and instinctively with me, people are asking me questions about it. I think that kind of helped you sort of like verbalize all the stuff that was going on in your head. No?
Yeah, I got talked into over a period of 2 years starting Patreon. I really didn't want to do it. I'm not into like getting cash from people. I've mellowed out like in terms of being kind of like weird about it, but like I didn't like how people would they would have no subscribers on YouTube. They would have no sort of like brand recognition. I hate to use the word brand recognition, but like they're unknown artists and they go on YouTube and they've got Patreon, they've got shirts, they have coffee mugs. And it's like, who are you? You have 36 followers and you want people to sign up to your Patreon. So anyway, but everyone on my YouTube channel, not everyone, a lot of people kept going like, you need to start a Patreon. So I finally did it. Yeah. But then I felt really guilty because I was like, well, what am I going to offer people that are paying me, a couple of dollars a month on Patreon? So I started doing some tutorials there. But my YouTube channel is not a tutorial channel. I never wanted it to be an educational channel. I have no interest in like building a public fan base based on education. But on Patreon, I felt like I just felt like I should give them more. So then what ended up happening is I started doing lessons and reviews because people kept asking me for one-on-one. They're like, could you review my work? So I created 2 tiers for that. But over the last like 4 years, I've done like 600 lessons and reviews, and that really got my drawing skills up. I've done
That's
probably
awesome,
1,500 videos all total between my YouTube channel and Patreon, easily.
So you're just on it all the time.
No,
right?
I'm not. That's the thing. I'm just really organized. Like on Mondays, I'll do like 8 hours of content, and then I try to be done for the week, except for like, you know, Super Fun Sunday and the stuff that I would do for YouTube for regular YouTube.
Is it because you're just understanding like this is how you play this game now is to make content?
I've always been like this. The example I can give, and
have you really?
No, so when I was in first grade, I remember going to school one day, and I got there a little bit early, and there was a kid that I was friends with, and he hadn't done his homework. I hadn't done my homework either. I actually sat there and helped him do his homework and didn't do mine, and we went into class. So it's a weird. Like, I've always tried to help people, and less than I'll help myself. Guy, Rich. But I really remember. I did distinctly.
I had a conversation with Sandra Hope a couple of weeks ago, and you know, I was telling her that when Dustin and I first went into Wildstorm, I think I was sort of like the weakest link in that whole setup because there was something about Dustin. No, there was something about, as far as work ethic and scheduling is concerned. Like there was something about Dustin that was just inherently zoned in. So like, I've got to get work done. We drove up or down from LA.
Sure.
Right. And so we're going to be here for a few hours. I better maximize and optimize my time being here. Right. And just generally, when we would walk into that place, you guys were so warm and so inviting. It would be like around lunchtime. So you come in, it's lunchtime. Let's go eat. Let's go hang out. Let's have laughs. But at some point in the afternoon, that just like, I remember there was a piece of paper that Jim had printed out and stuck on the door in the pit with us. It was NOFA, right?
Oh,
it was like
that. That's funny.
Right. It was like, it stood for like no fucking around, you know? And I think like, that's the time when everybody needs to start getting to work. And the reason why I knew what that meant is because I spent my entire time while I was at Wildstorm just kind of fucking around, you know, just like looking and checking out that door and checking out people's, you know, whatever the artwork was on there. But I could tell it was inherent, not just in you, but I mean, not just in everybody, but specifically in you. And you're like, I need to get work done, you know? And so you blocked out times where it's like, I don't want to get distracted by anything.
Yeah.
I don't remember you ever wearing headphones.
But that much towards the end.
Yeah.
Sandra Hope and I would say were probably the two that were at the studio the most, because Sandra and I would work on the weekends up there, because it was not uncommon for her and I to be up there Saturdays and Sundays. Literally, we'd be the only two. And you know, we became real close friends just because it was like, we were both inkers. We were both people that weren't like lifers, you know, like her story is very similar to mine, where it was for her, it was her boyfriend was trying to get work. I think her boyfriend ultimately became her husband, ex-husband now, but he was trying to break in at Wildstorm. And so like he'd have friends come over and they would all be drawing, and she started goofing around with inking and ended up being the one that got hired.
Right.
So
but to your point, it wasn't coming from a place of like, hey, I've always wanted to be in a comic book business. It came from a place of like, this could be a good job, you know, I'll do it as my 9 to 5, that kind of a thing. It came from more of a utilitarian sort of, I need to keep my bank, you know, I need to keep money in my bank kind of a thing, you know?
Absolutely.
And only until later did it turn into like an obsession for you, because I remember the first couple of times when you started pumping out your own work that wasn't inking work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I felt like, whoa, this like was super, it was like a ton of texture, right?
Right.
Almost macabre in the imagery, but I think that's because that's where you were at, or at least that's where your background came from. That kind of, that look, that feel, right?
Yeah,
so
like
talk about that really quick, and then go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, H.R. Giger was probably the first artist that I got into as a teenager, where I was heavily into Giger, and I remember at the time being very determined to be able to do with a rapidograph what he did with an airbrush. So you can still kind of see that carrying over into my works to this day. But I was probably 15 or 16 when I had that idea, where I saw the Necronomicon book, and I was like, I could totally do that with a tech pen.
Yeah. All right, that's it. Okay, thank you, Rich. I'll talk to you later. Bye. These assholes aren't contributing to this conversation. It's just you and me talking.
You guys are reminiscing
about
a shared past.
Yeah, we don't want to,
And honestly, as a fan, I'm kind of lost in these stories because they're awesome.
Well, I've been a fan, Shawn. I've been a fan of your work for forever, man. For at least 18 years. I always was like, oh wow. Man, like cool, a Shawn Crystal comic. So no, I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
You're one of the three that can actually with a level of genuineness say that out loud. Well, and you've kept his lights on.
And look, to be fair, I'm PayPaling Richard after the show for that little.
He is one. He is the 20. He's of the 20. He represents 20. What do you call it? 20 of Rich's Patreons because he's paying in through multiple accounts.
Dude, Mattteo, your imagination is off the charts. Whenever I see pieces that you've created, I'm always like, man, I need to really come up with better ideas for my drawings. Because I just
thanks, man.
When you do a convention, I can't wait to see like what you've made.
Thanks, man.
Listen,
I really appreciate
it. Sitting between these two monkeys at a show is amazing and awful at the same time because they're doing these commissions that are out of this world.
Well, Kennedi's
and they're just pouring out of them.
You did a thing right now, Rich, which is not ideal. Do you remember the movie Gremlins?
Yes.
Right? Oh. Where they're like, do not feed the gremlin past midnight.
Is Mattteo?
You know what I mean? Mattteo is. We're 25 minutes in, and he hasn't. And he has not said a fucking word. You know what I mean? He's okay.
And we're the Fratelli Gremlins.
Oh my god! And then you complimented him.
Your past history and stuff. So it was really, I was listening.
25 minutes in and you compliment him. That's like giving a gremlin food after midnight. You just see him get big in the frame. You know what I mean? Just like, here it comes. I can see the ego from Italy.
And since I'm going right to left, Eric, I mean, honestly, the thing with your work is you're similar to Mattteo for me, where it's whenever I I never have good ideas for single pieces. I'm kind of like Mignola, and Mignola is great. He's one of my favorite artists, if not probably my favorite artist. But like if I do a pinup, I generally will just have someone sort of like directly like looking at you, and I might turn the figure a little bit or this or that. But you're so creative with your layouts too, where it's like you've got 3-point perspective and a character, leaping at a cool angle, or you'll kind of fisheye things. And so whenever I lay out stuff now, I mean, always in the back of my mind, I'm going, can I squeeze a little like Cannetti into this idea? And Mattteo too.
Squeeze a little Cannetti. Yeah. Listen, I want to correct you just a bit, right? Like it's not like kind of like Mattteo, right?
He's exactly like Mattteo because he's been copying my stuff.
Mattteo took it from me.
Years.
Thank you for clearing this
story. I was telling this story. Everything that you just described right now, which is like people just like blankly looking at you. Not you, Rich, but like just generally people blankly looking at you. Very uninspired, stiff poses. And like straight out of the the Marvel Universe handbook. Like the arms to the side like this.
That's how I draw most of the time.
I saw Matteo's images and I could have sworn I was like, hey, you ripped this out of like, you know what I mean? Like Negative Man or whatever the fuck he was drawing back then. And then he meets me, right? And he's like, oh, I am allowed to do amazing drawings, And for a while he was actually doing everything like slowly coming up. And then I said, you know what? I can tell you're never going to be anything. Right? You are never going to count for so I had to first of all, I was aging, so I had to get out of his way. Right. So you were talking about WWE earlier, right? Yeah. I took a bump, right? So that, Hogan had to take a bump and leave so that the Ultimate Warrior can ultimately, right, just destroy himself by existing. Yeah. So that right there is Mattteo.
Listen, Eric, you're just lucky because you're way older than me, so you came first. That's the only thing they say,
Well, it reminds me of
way older.
Were any of you guys on the Shane Glein drawing board when the Shane Glein drawing board was like pretty active?
I was
Yeah,
not.
I was on there.
They used to do this thing called the it was a drawing that they would do each week where they would post a piece of photo reference and then everyone would do their spin on it, and Celia Kaye would post, and like everyone.
Oh yeah.
And I remember thinking like, man, some of these people are so freaking creative with a piece of reference, and they go so far beyond the idea, but yet it's still like the kernel of the idea is in there. And that always made an impression on me about like, spend that extra time on the idea and see if you can come up with something really good. But I'm still trying to develop that side of layout.
Hey Matt, did you ever take part in any sort of like message board community back in the day at all?
No. That's why I was really paying attention, because I don't know. At first, I didn't even know what you were talking about. So now I'm getting.
Yeah, I miss this, and I want us to be able to talk about it because I think it's really critical these days. Everything is like vying for your attention, but it only holds you for 10 seconds and then you move on, right? I think there's something that what Rich said is, I think, pretty cool back in the day when it was a message board, the Shane Glein one.
Yeah. It was called the drawing board, right?
Yeah.
Shane's was called the drawing board, yeah.
Right. And then there was like, I can't remember what the
Pencil Jack, I think, was another one.
A lot of those kinds of message boards were around, and it was great because it allowed you to be in a room of like artists that were concentrating and getting their craft better. And to Rich's big takeaway was like, yo, let me take a minute to just really consider the idea behind this before I start drawing.
Based on the reference, I would like, it would be a picture of who's the actor that plays Wolverine? Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman, yeah.
But it was sort of like a photo, like almost like a promo shot of him. So he was just wearing like a t-shirt, and I put like claws on his fist. That was and I feathered his hair, and like other people were like, they did it as a down shot, and it's like there's dead ninjas around him, and I'm like, okay, like my ideas are stupid.
But Mattteo, to explain what that was, is like different sites would have these different message boards, and in those message boards are like different themes. This is the one where we draw. In this case, it's like Hugh Jackman or whatever, and people would go to town. What's amazing about back then was that you would not just develop your craft, but also start developing that that legend. Oh, that person is from that message board. I know that guy.
It was a community. It was a real community builder. I mean, those message boards were full on communities.
I remember seeing way back when. Do you remember Rob Haynes for a while?
Yeah, of course.
Dude, I remember seeing that guy's work and thinking to myself, like, on my best day, I wish that I could draw that simply without covering up. Like, I think that's to me, the clear way of like, that guy is strong draftsmanship wise is when they don't cover it up with rendering, and that's almost sacrilegious to the people in this room. But I think that's what Rob Haynes did, which is just like leave everything in like a nice tapered line from time to time, but for the most part it was as close that you can get to like really good looking coloring books. You know what I mean? Like this guy can draw like a beast, and he came from those message board spaces,
Yeah.
I remember,
and that's when the conversation died.
I remember Adi Granov joining the Travis Yahoo group, and probably 2000, and just little moments like that where it's like, there's this new artist that's like into Travis, and wow, he's pretty good, like, so real neat, very inspiring. Kelsey and I talk about it because Kelsey was on the drawing board too, so he remembers like Cameron Stewart was there, Cheeks. I think.
Yeah, I remember.
Sean Galloway. Yeah.
DeviantArt actually was a really great community like 12 to 14 years ago, and it was sort of it was an extension of kind of like the Shane Glein's drawing board to me, where professionals were more open, and then it got more and more closed off, and pros were kind of like, there was the pro camp and then the aspiring camp. But when I first joined there,
typical,
there was it felt like a big picnic, and everyone was hanging out together, and it was like, oh hey, I brought sandwiches, you want a sandwich? And everyone was sharing, and then it just completely shut down.
Yeah, that's the space. That's the website that I remember seeing Sean Gordon Murphy's art for the first time.
Yeah,
and he had just done those pages for Hellblazer.
That's where Sean blew up. Yeah, Sean blew up on DeviantArt.
And I thought, like, what the hell is this guy doing? Yeah. This is so freaking good. This is so really well executed. And it's unfortunate that I mean, first of all, it was natural and typical for a place to like start off that kind of big community, and it starts to become this weird hierarchy. You know what I mean? But I think the part that
over a weekend, Eric, I swear to God, I'm not even kidding. I remember all of a sudden, like just tons of professional comic book artists all came in like within probably a few days of each other. And I'd already been there for like a couple of years. And I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. But they were immediately like, it was like Pepsi and Coca-Cola came in, not like, it wasn't like a private market anymore.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. And I think that's typical. Like it's happening now. Like there's a reason why I keep my social media, experience, number one, limited, and number two, curated, because I'm like, you guys act like you're the cool kids on the block, but I genuinely believe your time has come to an end. You know, like you guys are you guys are sundowning right now, and you're doing everything that you can to stay as relevant as possible by coming up with stupid shit to talk about. Right. But at the end of the day, people show up and follow you for your art. Stop talking or doing all of this other stupid shit. And I think it's a great transition to like, you're going into create your own work now, right? Yeah. Some of that stuff that I've seen, dude, that you've been previewing is bonkers good. And I remember you saying like, oh, I think I have plans. I have inclinations to try to release this in black and white. And I'm like, fucking do it, Rich.
Yeah,
do it in black and white. It's going to.
Yeah, that's why I was surprised. Sorry to interrupt, but I was really surprised to see that there's a colorist for the project. So it was like, oh, okay. Because I was expecting seeing the pages. I was like, yeah, this is going to be like black and white, But which I normally see your stuff.
I feel like it can like sustain both. Honestly, the black and white. I think the black and white book will be beautiful. People want an artist edition like already. So I mean, and obviously it wouldn't be called artist edition, but I always pictured it in color because I'm a real huge fan of concept art and like digital painting and that kind of stuff. So it's like I've always wanted this very like futuristic, not comic book color, but like futuristic colors on it. I think it could work. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, Kelsey's only colored a couple of pieces. The ones that he's done, I really like.
Yeah. Rich, you are now however many months deep into like doing your creator own. Oh, by the way, congratulations on the pieces that you did for this past San Diego. I can't believe you're having a conversation with us right now. San Diego just ended a few days ago. I thought you would be MIA. I messaged you fully expecting you to be like, are you kidding me? I just got done with San Diego Comic-Con. There's no way I'm going to be on a freaking podcast at 8 a.m., But that's cool, man. I saw the pieces that were going in there. There was a Daredevil piece that was exceptional, right? Each and every single one were good. But the one that I really sort of like glommed onto is like, what the fuck is Rich doing, man? Why is he just printing his own money?
I never do fan art. That was the first time that I've actually drawn superheroes in like 4 years. I never ever. Yeah. I just don't do it. So I think that maybe was more surprising than anything for people, is they're used to seeing me like sort of funnel it into like other things. So I don't know, man. I think from a technical just craft perspective, it was really, really well done. So
whether or not it was a Daredevil, whether or not it was Daredevil or anything else, it was really well done. So the fact that it was Daredevil was like a nice icing on the cake, but it wasn't as if like, oh, if it wasn't Daredevil, then nobody would care about this piece. It is really well done. So let me go back to what I was talking about. Like,
I'd be curious. Go. So when I first started drawing and I was doing commissions at like Comic-Con, most of the time people, and I don't know if it was because of the stuff that I was drawing, like that they had seen, but I would say over half the time people would just say, draw whatever you want. Do you guys get that? Or do you get more of like, I want like a specific thing?
Yeah. Rarely do I get. Sometimes I get to draw what you want, but rarely, very rarely.
Yeah, that was. It was. I always thought that was a good sign that people had faith in sort of what I might do. Like that's seemed like an interesting. It was something to take note of, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, first of all, you're comparing yourself to these dum-dums. So like they trust you, Rich. That doesn't transfer to these guys. Like they did that a couple of times, like in their early years where they were like, draw what you want. And then the stuff that they would draw, and they were like, oh, we should never let them do whatever comes into their collective
now they
brains.
just hand Mattteo and I a thumbnail. Here, do this.
Redraw Daredevil by Rich Friend is what now they're going to start saying to these guys, you know?
Do you ever get like...
No, but that's a good question. That's a good question, though. Mattteo, you know, which one would you prefer? Would you, but because, and in Matteo's case, it's different from mine. I'll get 2 commissions and I'm pretty dang happy during the weekend. Matteo's list fills up 3 days before the show starts. It is bonkers to see. Awesome. Like, you know, I'm like, I get super proud, you know, when I'm looking at my commissions list and we're all sitting at our table together. We're all represented by the same guy in Essential Sequential, right? So I get in my thing, like if I reach 5, Rich, right? I'm all like, yep, somebody's having a fucking amazing weekend, you know?
Yeah.
And I look at Matteo's list, and he's filled up 2 sides of that piece of paper.
That's crazy.
You know?
No, come on, you're exaggerating.
And I'm like, we no, it's true, and it doesn't, and it's probably because you take on more during the weekend, right? I remember looking at it. What had to have been New York Comic Con, where you flip the page. You know?
Yeah.
And I was like,
oh yeah, back then,
man, that's 20.
That's something that I used to do back then. Like sometimes I did some New York. I did like 30 or something. But I like in time, I decided to take way less and spend way more time on each one of them. Sometimes I just do like 2 a day.
Right.
So,
but those 2 are like covers and
it's basically I'll spend the morning to do one and the afternoon to do the other one. I'll just, you know, until I'm not happy with the drawing that I did with the pencils, I'm not gonna start inking unless I'm 100% happy with what I'm doing. While before I used to just, okay, this has to be done. Okay, done. I would have like 3. I would do 3 at a time sometimes, you know?
I was telling people over Comic-Con, I said one of the biggest mistakes that I made as an aspiring penciler was I in my mind, I thought that I had to be fast. I thought that my ideas had to come out fast and I had to execute things fast. And it wasn't working for me, but I kept trying to be that artist where it's like, oh, you want Batman? Yeah, no problem. And I would try to draw Batman, you know, in an hour and it would be terrible. And what I found is it takes me maybe a couple of hours to really like lock in a drawing. And then to ink it can take a long time. You know, I wish I was faster.
Sure.
I had to understand that I can't. I'm hunting and pecking too much the whole time that I'm drawing. I don't have a lot of like stuff. I have a lot of stuff memorized, but I don't have a lot of like I don't have the execution memorized.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Matteo's speed is it's insane.
Yeah,
the quality you can achieve in the time you get it done. Now, I don't know anyone else in comics.
That's what I tell every time. Like I'm at a show and some students just stop by and they want to ask me for some advice. And a lot of times, if they come from a school, especially in Italy, they have this. They're fixated about the fact that they have to be fast. So they showed me stuff, and I'm like, yeah, this is. I see nice stuff here. But, you know, here you should have spent more time. And they're like, yeah, but this, you know, I did it in 2 weeks. I'm like, you shouldn't be doing that now. Like, I think my suggestion every time is find your ideal quality and then learn how to get it faster and faster and faster. But the quality must be that, you know. So at first it will take you a week to do a page. And then the week is going to become 6 days, then 5 days. And eventually you reach the same amount of quality in like 2 days.
Yeah.
But at first you gotta put quality in front of everything. Yeah. But at the same time, I understand the reason behind it because, you know, comic books is a quick art. You know, you gotta, you know, especially if you were for the U.S. industry, you should be able to do 20 to 24 pages a month in theory. So now things have changed lately, but in general, it used to be that. So I understand this idea that still you have to learn as well how to accept that, it's done, because I have more stuff to do, because I have another 19 pages to do. So, I understand the reasoning behind it. So I'm not bashing it, but at the same time, I think that, you should find a nice balance between the two things in order to enjoy yourself as well. Otherwise, it's a run against time every time, And with this,
Eric,
I'm done.
Eric,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Drop the mic.
I'm gonna feed the gremlin. Okay,
No,
Are you
hold
ready
on.
for
Wait,
this?
before you do it, before you do it, right? Like everything that he just said right now is so fucking amazing. It was on point. It was like it had a one train, like no like flashing piece of tinfoil flew across the room where it got him distracted and he started talking about randomly something else. It was so on point and so like well said, and by the way, it's multipliable to people who are listening to the show, getting it better at their craft. Don't worry about that. Find the good version of your art. And then like find a way to get to there faster. Holy shit, how profound is that piece of advice?
It is really,
I wish he'd have
advice.
said it like just do that more often. But instead you keep talking about how cool you are. You know what I mean? Just like
You rub
get
the
to the
gremlin,
part
man.
where you're helpful to
That's what happens when you do it.
just get to the part where you're helpful to society instead of just like, just talking about yourself all the time. It's so weird. I'm sorry, Shawn, go ahead.
No, I was going to kind of say what you said. What Mattteo just said was advice that was given to me in a room full of students when Walter Simonson came down when I was in school and did a demo and a talk for us. Someone asked that question about speed. And he said, don't worry about speed. Worry about craft and quality. Speed comes with craft and quality.
Yeah.
And so I'm comparing what Mattteo just said to advice given to me by Walter Simonson.
If
I'm
I
just
can read
feeding
between the
gremlin.
lines, though, Shawn, and what I'm hearing is that Mattteo effectively plagiarized everything that he
Of
just
course.
said. From
Did you think for a second he came up with that on his own?
Yeah, no. I think it was so well said, though. Is it like in
I
the
hear a lot of
artist
envy
edition
in
of like
this
a Walt
room.
Simonson?
What? Sorry.
I have a
just
video.
a thought.
I have a video on my YouTube channel called "I Was an Idiot," and I talk about. I think because I was an inker for so long, I never would use the eraser when I would pencil, and so I would always try to get stuff down almost perfectly from the first, like right from the beginning. And so I was watching Jim Lee do one of his Twitch streams. And he was having trouble, I think, with a leg. And boy, I worked around Jim for 12 years. Like he literally, his desk was like 2 feet from me. But I rarely would like sit over him and watch him draw. I would just see the results of what he had done. But man, he must have spent 30 minutes erasing the leg and trying it again. He tried a different pose, bend the knee a little bit more. And I'm like, I never do that. If I can't, this is a long time ago, but if at the time it was like, if I can't get it in like 1 or 2 tries, I feel like, okay, I'm just not ready for that pose. Like I don't know. I don't have that part of my language. Now I'll just keep trying different positions and start to think about the skeleton and like, I have a bunch of approaches that can whittle it down.
Yeah.
And then
and you want to talk about like a guy who has sort of like a mental library of poses. I would think it'd be freaking Jim Lee. And just to hear you talk about how he's struggling with a leg, it's almost charming to think about. Like you would think that Jim Lee has those automatic things.
He's real particular
that he goes into.
It was a double page spread with Superman and Batman fighting. I think from I don't know if it was Hush, but it was around that time. It was either Hush or like right after.
Yeah,
but
you saw him still struggling.
He finally erased.
That's awesome.
Well, that was on Twitch, but he had a double page spread one time of Superman and Batman fighting. It was 2 different stories. I'm sorry. The Twitch stream, he worked on the piece, the area from like 20 minutes or so, whatever it was. But I remember there was a double page spread on his desk from Superman, Batman, of them fighting. And for about a day and a half, he kept trying to rework the figures, and he couldn't get Superman's arm, I think, to look like he was holding Batman and punching him or something. And I remember I had gone out for something, and I came back in and he had erased it all. And I was like, holy shit. I'm like, you took out all that stuff. He goes, it was never going to work, me trying to fix this one little thing. I had to take it all out and rebuild it. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. But
anything like that for you, Shawn? Have you ever gone to like, hey, I'm just going to move on to the next thing? Or because let me give you an example. You know, Jeff DeCal, when our good pal Jeff DeCal has said once to me, like, the reason why he has an opportunity not to struggle with a piece is that he works on multiple pieces at the same time. So he has the opportunity to be like, I can't deal with that right now. I'm going to take that frustration away from that and now start taking the inspiration and putting onto this other thing. Do you have anything like that at all?
That's smart. For me, yes, I remember like having to wipe out a drawing because it just reached a point where it was too problematic. But I think once I developed my shorthand, like my little thumbnail language really, really well, that I could work it out there. And I knew if that little tiny shape worked and I blew it up and finessed the drawing, I knew the shape worked. So I wouldn't have to abandon that drawing anymore.
Yeah. What I've seen, and then this is a direct contrast, Maddie can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're doing a little bit of that Jim Lee when you were doing those commissions, when you were just like cranking out 30, right? There's a handful in there. I knew those poses were in your back pocket, right? But there was a couple, and I remember this one distinctly, and you're going to laugh. But you did a pin-up or a commission for a guy who was dressed like a pirate. Do you remember this guy?
Oh yeah.
This was in Bologna.
I remember this. Yeah, in Bologna a few years ago.
And I remember thinking to myself, that is for something that he is like, number one, not familiar with, right? It's not Superman, it's not Batman or whatever it is. It's some dude cosplaying as a pirate. I think that's the first one where I thought to myself, like, he's doing something different there. That was not in your regular sort of like, rotation of poses, right?
Yeah.
Do you engage? Are you engaging more of that now? Because rarely do I see that was 3 poses ago. He did the same thing, but a different costume.
Those are just moments that happen. I don't know how to control them. And I don't remember because I felt
Eric, don't give him too much credit.
I remember I felt weird in a good way when I was doing that piece. I remember that piece specifically. And I remember you stopping by and telling me. So it's fun that you remember that.
Yeah, that's stuck in my head too, because that was like what Eric was saying to you. I was sitting there watching it like, wow, to know Eric's skill level and what he has in his head and laying on Mattteo, like you've just reached a level of master illustrator that's amazing. So to just listen to that, it always stuck with me. Like that's a moment. That was an amazing
reached
moment.
a level of master illustrator, and I bestow it upon you, Mattteo.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Rich. Say that again.
Is that piece on your Instagram?
I don't remember. I don't remember if
do you have access to that file anywhere?
I think I have access. Yeah, to that file. We'll ask Jamie to.
Get that to Jamie because he can put it in the show. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. But I remember,
is it in one of your art books? I think it's in one of your art books. No,
I don't know. I don't recall.
I think
to be honest with you, but I remember. Yeah, that specific feeling that I don't have every time, and I think it comes from a very, very precise vision that I had even before getting to draw. I was already I saw your costume. I saw the stuff that I can do with the inks. So whatever, it was posing for me for a second. And I just remember his pose. And then I started, I think, taking pictures of the costume because it was a really complex costume with a lot of stuff on it. But I already, it was already in my head. And the connection between the head and the hand was immediate. Like in my head, I'd already done it. So it was just a matter of just doing it because I already knew how it was going to, plan out the whole thing. and rarely, you know, it happens. You know, it's a rare thing. You know, I don't know how to get there. Probably the more you know, exercise your visions, your vision ability. I don't know how to say it, but the more you learn how to
that's a good way
imagine it before having a really good image of what you want to do before, probably that's what creates this kind of moments. I don't know. It'd be nice.
Doesn't that kind of go back to what Rich was saying earlier, which is something like, oh, I need to do more thinking ahead of time rather than just going like, hey, I'm just going to do, you know, this drawing, you know?
I always felt
I think where you're referring to.
I had the wrong idea of what pencilers were. Well, one, you know, it's funny because I had all kinds of misconceptions. I always felt like when people got good that they didn't like struggle through drawings. I don't know why, but I assumed that like, because with like inking, it was very rare when I would ink a piece that I would look at a page and go, oh, like, fuck, that's going to be hard. Because once I had all the techniques down, there are some things that you go like real long brush lines can be kind of trepidatious, but so I always felt like, oh, well, for someone like Mattteo or Shawn or you, Eric, you know, it's like you guys don't really like have any sort of like, you go, oh man, like I have to do an upshot, that's going to be freaky, you know, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the nose and the mouth looking just right, or the underneath, you know, carriage of the jaw or whatever. But I don't know why I just assumed that it was like all not simple, but you know, like you knew it.
I have commentary about that. It goes back to what we were talking about 5 minutes ago, which is there are things that are in your back pocket that's easy to kind of bust out, right? It's almost a drop down menu. In my head, it's almost like a drop down menu of like, I understand that, like on a commission level, oh, this character is, you know, whatever, name the character. Yeah. In my head, I'll engage like 4 or 5 different poses where I'm like, I can get away with that, you know, because it captures that character perfectly, whether it's female, male, whatever it is, you know. But then there are times, and this goes back to what Mattteo was saying, where you're like, this is out of control. I'm not even thinking about this. You know what I mean? Like, so cool. It just feels good, you know, to like, oh, I did that image, and that just feels like that wasn't something that was from the drop down menu, you know? I was just drawing. It was on the rough level. I already got it, right? So I can start rendering. Right. And that's when for me, my experience is when I'm still rendering with Copic marker, when I can like my process is typically like the rough pencil, right? Then the Copic marker on top of it, and then the ink on top of that, because I use like a you know, ink that can smear if I put marker on top of it, right? You know, so I leave it until the end, but I'm working with pencil so that once I get the basic drawing down, if I'm, you know, going through my normal process, not struggling, but just normal, I'll draw it and then I'll lightly erase the pencil before I go with marker, because the marker will pick up the red lead and smear that a little bit, you know? Yeah. But there are times when I'm just like, I get it, where I just draw the red drawing or the red pencil drawing, and I'm not doing anything else. I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about lifting the eyebrow. I'm thinking about like, I just go and draw. And then start rendering with marker, just like, well, we should not, this is way too fast. Like in my head, there's a little cautionary thing that's like, oh, this is too fast. Calm down, just go back in there. But similar to Matteo's experience, it just feels so good in the moment that you're like, I'm just drawing now, you know? And it's rare that it happens, but it does happen.
Now, like, okay, so like the pieces that I just did before Comic-Con, I actually crashed and burned on 3 of them, and I did one of them 3 times to get the final piece to where I wanted it. One of them, I realized 11 hours into the piece that her eyes and her nose were too far apart. I just, for whatever reason, I didn't notice it before. And I put the piece away for like the night. And in the morning I looked at it and I was like, no, you've got to be kidding me. Like, seriously, her nose was like, it was just a little, like, I swear, I was telling people at Comic-Con, I'm like, in Photoshop, like, all you would literally need to do is just grab it and move it up like a 1/16 of an inch, and it would have been fine.
Sure.
But do you guys ever scrap pieces like hours into them? Because I do. Like, all. You do? Have you?
Eric. Yeah. When we stay in a hotel room, there's usually a trash can with Eric's drawings torn up in it.
Right.
Because he'll start something and not like it and throw it away.
Yeah. I'm personally, I don't put any stock on something as far as like being finished until it's actually finished. So I'm not really precious about trying to save a drawing. And I catch myself, tell me if this is true for you guys. The more I try to save a drawing, the worse it gets.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like
so
you're
painful.
now micromanaging. Like, dude, it goes like this. It goes like, this part is broken, so I'll try to fix it. And by trying to fix that, it breaks this other thing. And it just dominoes through the piece. It just keeps breaking. And I'm like, why am I going to spend that time trying to fix this thing instead of saying, okay, I'm going to put you aside now and just start over, where I don't have to fix 5 things and then 10 things on top of that I didn't see, you know?
It's almost like it's like the wonkiness kind of balanced itself out. And once you fixed, like, say, like an eye that was maybe a little bit crooked to you, all of a sudden you realize, oh shit, the jawline was actually a little bit off. Oh, and then the nose, the nose really kind of, it helped the crooked eye. But now that the eye is straight, now the nose is, and it's like, it's like,
and to your point though, like, there are people there are styles that people engage with their art, the styles that they use, that is very unforgiving. Right. To the level of like that jankiness that, like, me personally, I'm like, I love the fact that my shit isn't structurally sound. Right. You know, like, people go, do you ever flip your drawings over? I'm like, fuck no. Why would I do that to myself? You know, that's like, that's just like, right? Like, but if you're looking at it from this one angle, and I'm speaking of Jim, I see that when I was watching his YouTube stream or his Twitch streams one time, he would take that drawing and hold it up to the light to see if it holds up to like the flop. And I'm all like, of course, like, because that's Jim Lee. Me personally, I'd prefer not to do that because it just exposes so many weaknesses in the drawings. Where are you guys on that? Like,
and what scares me, thing scares me because sometimes, when I do, like, sometimes I do it not to fix it because I'm just curious to see how fucked up my brain is. Because sometimes, to me, it kind of works. I see there's something crooked or something. But it kind of works, and then I flip it, and it doesn't make any sense. Like, one eye is here, the other one is here. I'm like, do I have a brain tumor or something? Like, am I gonna die soon? Because if I can't see this fucking abomination, like, there's something wrong with me. So it scares me more than, it humiliates me on an artistic point of view. It really scares me about what kind of games my brain plays.
I don't want to know my problem.
Yeah,
I don't want to know my problem, so I'm not going to address it.
I'm probably going to die soon, but, at least they're going to be dying happy and not knowing about
For me, when I can't figure it out, I know inherently something is broken. I know when I'm like, I don't know how to fix it. I keep looking at it, but I know there's something in the shoulder, something with the proportion. That's the one rare instance where I'll flip it and I go like, I get it, and then I'll fix it on the flip and then like put it back. Then it settles down, right? But I'm similar to you, Matty. I'm like, I don't want to put myself through that stupid torture. It's not necessary. Like, does it work the way I drew it? Kind of does. To Rich's point, is like, if I had Photoshop, I'd bump this bad boy up. But hey, this is what you get, know?
Yeah.
I know how many commissions I look back on, and I'm all like, that was so bad. I should just measure just a tiny bit more.
Right. I know. Well, and I'm kind of like, I'm learning that more to really check my proportions. Because a lot of times for me, I still go where like, it's like, oh, I've got enough of a sketch down, or like a tight sketch, like everything's fine. It's because it's drawn. But then I'll be, and I'll go, dude, the fists are like literally 2 completely different sizes. Like, how the fuck did you not see that like one fist is like,
yeah, that happens.
But I do it.
What helped me was Eric said something to me once, because I was having that, like, going through that same stuff, and he said, if you understand the intention of your drawing, you're going to forgive some other things.
Yeah.
So if I see like one fist is a little bigger, I'm like, but is the intention of the drawing there? Yeah. So it's good to go.
That sounds like a coping mechanism that I gave to you, dude. That's a coping pill that I said, like, that's a fucked up drawing, Shawn.
It wasn't doing you a favor. It was ruining your career.
I actually think in my
I've
mind,
been trying to sabotage Shawn's career for the past 10, 15 years now, dude. Every time he draws something, I'm all like, that's good enough, bro. You know, like move on.
That's what happened. I was wondering what happened. It was you.
Yeah, that was my intention
to
draw
lose track of this.
this female with mustache. It was my intention.
As long as you understand the intention of the mustache, Shawn. Here's the thing. There are times though when you overfix something. Do you guys ever get there where you're like, dude, that was so much better janky? You know, like you overmeasure and you're like, all the life went out of it because everything is so technically strong, but it's not interesting to look at. And that's when I catch myself going, dude, you should have just trusted your gut and like just gone with a janky drawing, because now you've just taken all the life out of it, you know?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do with the new book. Sorry, Richard. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rich.
I was just gonna say, I always think I'm a huge fan of like Jay Lee in particular, like early in his career. I love all of his work, but like his Namor stuff and kind of like that Wildcats trilogy. I would go like a little wonky is actually good. Like leave that shit in. Don't I'm not trying to be Tim Bradstreet where it's like a photorealistic. I want a stylistic graphic quality.
Yeah. We were talking about this. I think it was probably offline, but also it's similar to the subject matter, which is when you're depending on where you are in your artistic journey, right? You're a lot more forgiving because you have an understanding of intent, you know? But when you're at the beginning and you're just trying to understand the rules, you need as many like guardrails as possible. And that's why when I'm talking to somebody who's giving me feedback about my art and go like, oh, your anatomy is off. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. You know, like, but that's like, it's not because I don't know how to draw it. It's easy enough to get anatomy anywhere. If I genuinely wanted to understand what those forearm muscles really realistically look like, it's easy enough to get that information. But the intent, that wasn't my intent. So that cues me in to where they are in their like sort of thinking, if not in their journey, to be like, you need that level of truth in order for you to confirm to yourself that's good. And it's really like, I've done my job well, right? That's instead really of going like, well, your job is probably 10 steps, you know, you're doing your job well is not just that one component. It probably is 10 steps above you, right? But you're not there yet to understand that broader broadcast signal. You know, you're like, oh yeah, you're still worried about whether or not this tendon hooks up to the hand correctly and whether or not this is in perspective. Whereas I'm thinking about it going like, you know, oh, I'm looking at Jack Kirby stuff going like, yo, that structurally is so kooky, right? But man, does that have the kind of impact, the intended impact that I think the thing should have when somebody is moving through space, you know? All right, that's an hour and 6 minutes, dude.
Thank you, Rich. We did it for 5 hours about this stuff. It's so fun.
Well, Rich, why don't you come back on again? We'll have you on again.
Let's do it again.
Great. This was really great.
And
let's do it again.
I'd love to have you.
Your Blaster Kid is on its way, right? Like X amount of months. You are near, where are you in the process of getting it out to the people who are like genuinely interested in backing it?
I'd like to get it in their hands by like February.
Awesome.
So I one of the reasons that I did all those fan art pieces was I was going to try to like give myself some wiggle room where more similar to what you did, which is you had your book done when you did the campaign. I would like to be really close to being finished with it so that there's not a long wait once they pay.
Good man.
Exactly. That's smart.
Good choice.
I just feel it was kind of going back to the Patreon thing where it's like, I didn't want to take people's money on Patreon if I'm not providing a product in a professional manner. You know what I mean? Like I'd immediately put pressure on me to like create content for them because I didn't want, 300 people giving me money every month for me to just like show early access or, that didn't feel like it wasn't substantial enough. But with the crowdfunding thing too, it's like, I really wouldn't want them to wait 2 years for the book or a year, that just seems extreme.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think that's the way. I think, I think you have to have the book done or almost done before you do the campaign.
Yeah. Well, like Shawn said, let's do this again. Hopefully there's an opportunity. If you're comfortable with, let's show some of those pages again with the professional editor in tow. We can have some of those pages on screen as you're talking about it, whatever it is.
I can show new Blaster Kid pages because I'm working on more sequentials right now. So
Dude, we'll take that any day.
It's awesome.
All right, Rich.
Yeah, let's do that next time.
We can do it. Sorry to interrupt, guys. We could do it another episode when we get close to the campaign launch. So that you can have the 10 people that follow us could be potential clients.
Maybe we can convince 2 of them to buy into Rich or whatever.
I'm going to get a new computer, so I'll actually be able to run the program on my computer and not my phone.
Yeah, boy.
Awesome.
All right, awesome. Rich, thank you for your morning. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks a lot, man.
I'm going to hit this.
I'm actually going to do a lesson for Patreon right now.
Hey, there you go.
Awesome.
All right, we're going to put all of your relevant information. Rich, don't hang up. Allow your side to upload.
Oh, okay.
Or sorry, don't close the window. Right?
Okay.
Don't close the tab.
How long?
Once I hit this stop button.
For how long?
It's giving a percentage. So hold on.
Okay.
I'm going to hit the stop button now.
This is the INKPULP Podcast. This is the INKPULP Podcast. Comics, hip hop, life.